Are you ready for rapid fire?
There's a lot of juicy stuff to get to today, so I'm pretty excited about this.
Thought so as well. I'm going to start with Irish English's question that he threw in while we were doing the two words. There's a little bit of a disagreement on the boards as to what Notre Dame Miami's line will be at kickoff. What's your take? It opened at 1.5. People are saying 3.5. Open Notre Dame -1.5.
I would set this at minimum Notre Dame 2.5, and I think you could explore this thing all the way up to like 6.5. I think Notre Dame wins by a touchdown, to be honest with you. I
was pretty shocked that they're only giving that's all they're giving.
I think it should be at minimum that Notre Dame should be given a field goal. And again, I would if it were up to me, I'd set this at a touchdown. I'm just not buying what Miami is selling. Carson Beck is coming off a serious elbow injury and is nowhere as near as good athletic as Cam Ward, who was the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. They had multiple weapons on the offense go to the NFL between wide receiver and running back. And you just can't convince me that they're going to overhaul and completely fix a bad defense in one season as well. So I don't know. Again, I think the books love that, this game is at Miami. It's the first game of the year. That could be eating into the spread a little bit. But again, I'm not buying that Carson Beck led Miami is something that Notre Dame should be fearful of.
I mean, these books going into the season, I've said it all along, not just the books, but the pollsters and everybody else. They love the returning quarterback experience. That's what it comes down to. And that's what Miami has and what Notre Dame lacks going into the season. So I think it'll end up being Notre Dame by at least a field goal. Notre Dame at least -3.
Like by the time the game starts?
By the time the game kicks off or the week of the game, I think Notre Dame will be a 3-point favorite. I think they'll win by more than that, but I think that that's what it'll end up being. Fill in the blank. It's blank that according to Brian Driscoll's intel, Notre Dame knocked it out of the park with its big recruiting weekend this past weekend.
Yeah, it's freaking electric if you ask me. And then I was like, well, what is he even talking about here? And then I went on the good old social media and I saw something about, basically 3 NFL dads and their sons are just all chilling at Notre Dame. One of them, including Larry Fitzgerald. I was like, all right, you could have shown me Larry Fitzgerald, and I would have been like, all right, like pack it up.
That's all you had
time to go. And then there was, I think it was one of the Finleys, right? Is another one.
Jermichael Finley's son, Caden, Larry Fitzgerald's son, Devin, Thomas Davis, and Thomas Davis and Thomas Davis Jr.
Yeah. Okay, I knew I missed the Davis Jr. one, but yeah, I saw that picture and I was like, I mean, to be honest with you, this is the Marcus Freeman effect, because Brian Kelly wasn't bringing in these guys, and he wasn't even getting them here on recruiting visits, let alone, all 3 in the same room and like a serious contention to get them at the end of the day, right? So it's like Marcus Freeman has unlocked a new level of recruit at Notre Dame, and I just think the national championship happening last year should put the world on notice, because in terms of recruiting and getting these cycle of recruits into Notre Dame, we're only on the precipice. How about that word? How about that word right there? We're only on the precipice for what Marcus Freeman is going to do in terms of recruiting. And that's what we're seeing. Yeah. Marcus Freeman is stacking up names like Jerome Bettis Jr.,
Elijah Burris,
Larry Fitzgerald's son. Like, those only happen for a couple reasons. You've gained the trust of an NFL father, first and foremost. And second of all, they believe their son's talents aren't going to go wasted at Notre Dame, and that they're a premier place for development and getting to the NFL. And so if those things don't excite you or get you electrified like they do me, then I don't know what to tell you.
No, I mean, Bryce Young, who we talked about earlier in the show, and like keep going on down the list. Jordan Clark last year.
Someone said Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi. There you go. That was BK's big coup.
That's the difference right there. Brian Kelly's father's son was Bon Jovi. Marcus Freeman's father sons, much different.
No offense. Yeah, I mean, any recruiting weekend is big, but this was also the first one post Chad Bowden, and
Ooh, that's a good point.
Like it felt like he made these, these things out to be, it was all him and all the work that he was doing, and like he's the one that spun this. But I think you nailed it. It's much more about Marcus Freeman, and I think that now it's even going to be even more so about Marcus Freeman, and the fact, like people were worried for a long time about, well, did they capitalize on playing in the national championship game and beating Georgia and beating Penn State and all those great things? Yes, they have. Like
that's what I mean. He just had to show it. He just had to show it that Notre Dame is no longer the doormat in the big games. They'll go to toe-to-toe. They'll beat the SEC champ. They'll beat, the IU team. They'll beat the Big Ten, champion finalists at the end of the day. So, yeah, I mean, it's one thing to kind of, do the whole window dressing, but to go out there and to win the games, like that was the final statement I think that was needed for a lot of these big time recruits.
Brian says Bowden wore a leprechaun suit with Pride socks. Yeah, I don't think Marcus Freeman or Mike Brown were wearing the leprechaun suit this weekend. Fill in the blank. If you could travel back in time to watch any Notre Dame football game in person, it would be blank.
I would have to say. So I always break this into two categories. One, games I can remember, and games that I can't. I would go back to their last national championship as one of the games that I obviously wasn't around for.
Like the actual game, Notre Dame, West Virginia in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yes.
Okay.
1988.
Yep.
And then for the game that, I was around for, probably the Notre Dame and USC game, even though it didn't go in Notre Dame's favor.
You would watch that again?
I would watch that again.
Why would you want to watch that?
I'd want to watch that again as a grown man. But if I didn't go with that one, this felt too easy. But the Notre Dame and IU game this last year was tremendous. But
that's true. But you were already there. So.
I know. And it's again so recent. So that's kind of where I'm at.
This is the one that I would choose. The one that Michael Hahn says, Miami, 1988, Lou Holtz, Jimmy Johnson, all the great plays in that game. Like Cleveland Gary and the fumble at the goal line, and of course Pat Terrell and the play in the end zone, and like the whole thing, and like the significance of that 31-30, stopping the 2-point conversion, number one, number two, and obviously it propelled Notre Dame to the national championship that you were talking about. Like that, like Catholics versus convicts, obviously is how it's known now. You've seen the 30 for 30 Catholics versus convicts, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, if not, you need to find it at some point.
Honestly,
but that would be mine. Easily 1988 Notre Dame, Miami, peak of that rivalry.
Another one for me would be the national championship run in 2013 or 14, whatever year that was.
The 2012 season that ended.
2012 season.
Yeah. Yep.
I would go with the Stanford game in the rain.
Oh, good one.
I was there.
I was going to say I was there as well, so it's like.
But it was electric, and I was in that end zone where they made the stand.
Yeah, I was going to say, honestly, all I remember from that game is the goal line stand. Like that's the only thing that stands out about that game. Very sloppy, obviously rain and the whole thing. Did you see just before we came on? You might have been too busy. No hitter at the College World Series today.
Really, I did not. About team or one guy?
One guy, Gage Wood from Arkansas. He took a perfect game into the eighth. He took a perfect game into the eighth inning. He hit a batter to lose the perfect game, and then ended up striking out 19. I think he struck out at least the last 4 guys he faced. Third no-hitter in College World Series history, the first in 65 years. Gage Wood. Arkansas. Yep. Pretty amazing. Yeah, they had like I said, he had a perfect game going, and of course they put up on the screen, the announcers didn't say the word perfect game, but up on the screen they had perfect game alert, and then of course he hit a batter with a curveball on his back foot. That's how he lost the perfect game. And then he actually, in the 9th inning, first batter threw another curveball, and it hit the guy, like in the lead elbow, but he had like the armor.
Get called back.
He had the body armor on. Well, he didn't just get called back; he got struck out because he had 2 strikes on him.
So he was leaning into strike 3.
Yep, exactly. Well, it wouldn't have been a strike, but he was leaning into the pitch. Like, I don't know if you've seen the new college rules. Like, you're not allowed to lean into anything in college anymore. So, big difference. All right, we're going to do a guess the line today, or over under win total. We're going to do Oklahoma football.
It's a hard schedule.
We're going to guess the over under win total for the Oklahoma Sooners this season. You ready?
I'm ready.
This? Okay. Illinois State.
Win.
Michigan.
Win.
You're calling it a definite win? It's not even a maybe?
No maybe for me.
Okay. Temple.
Win.
Auburn.
Win.
Kent State.
Win.
Man. Illinois State, Temple, Kent State. Okay.
Well, this is where it gets tough.
Now, Texas.
Maybe.
South Carolina. At
Win.
South Carolina. I call that a maybe. Ole Miss.
Maybe.
Tennessee. At Tennessee.
Maybe.
At Alabama.
Maybe.
Whew, man, this is a brutal
I was going to say, this last 7 games is unreal.
Missouri is your breather, and it's not like I don't think they'll be horrible. So then you got Missouri.
Win.
And then you finish with LSU.
Maybe.
My goodness.
That's why I couldn't count that Michigan one. I was like, they at least got to get that one.
Man, you've got 5 maybes alone there out of 12 games.
It's got to be 7.5.
I think it's going to be 6.5.
Well, only time will tell.
Well, that's why we're here to guess. So you're saying 7.5. I'm saying 6.5. Is 7.5 your number? Okay.
Yes, it is.
I got to look it up. We are guessing the over/under season win total for the Oklahoma Sooners this season.
All I know is Tommy would be that guy to put down a bunt in the 9th inning of a perfect game.
I was going to come back to that just a second. The perfect game was already gone at that point, by the way, when the second guy leaned into it. So, and you know my philosophy. Like, what was our 2-strike approach? When you get to 2 strikes, crowd the plate, take away the inside part of the plate, and be more than willing to receive that ball in your backside if you needed to, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You're at 7.5 for Oklahoma?
Yep.
I'm at 6.5. And the number is 6.5.
What was the line? Like minus
164 on the over, plus 134 on the under.
Yeah. I'm tired of these beefy minus 160, minus 170. Put it down to 7.5. Put it at minus 110 and really get the people going. No more of this minus 160, minus 170 BS.
There's a lot of variance in these in their odds this year. Like I guess I didn't look like really closely at a lot of the odds like for over-unders last year, but like if you look at game over-unders, the odds are fairly similar typically. Like if you look at points in a game, like total points in a game,
yeah,
we're in the under are fairly similar, but
it's usually around like 48, 49.5.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying, like the odds is what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
No, you don't.
Okay.
Dan Orlovsky says he expects JJ McCarthy to throw 30 touchdowns and for 4,000 yards for the Vikings this season. Do you buy or sell it?
So, excuse me while I pull something up real quick.
You gonna look for Sam Darnold's stats?
No.
Okay.
No. NFL Vikings QB stats per year.
Well, Sam Darnold threw for 4,300 yards and 35 touchdowns last year. His career best before that was in 2019 when he threw for 3,000 yards and 19 touchdowns for the Jets. So I think that's why Orlovsky feels so strongly about it.
Yeah, I mean, looking at 30 touchdowns is the stretch. I think he'll get 4,000 yards. But I mean, Darnold last year threw 4,300. The year before that, Kirk Cousins threw for about 4,500, and then 4,200, and then 4,200. So all these quarterbacks are eclipsing kind of that 4,000 threshold, and they're all right around that 30 touch mark. So at least Dan Orlovsky, did a little bit of his homework here.
Especially with a 17-game season now.
Yeah, 17-game season as well. So you get that extra bonus. But, I'm actually going to sell this because I think that's lofty expectations for a first-year starter, no matter, how much talent they have at the wide receiver position, how talented their head coach is, Kevin McConnell, and being an offensive-minded guru. I just don't buy that from a first-year starter. Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, they at least had experience elsewhere, something to kind of fall back on. Yes, they might not be, tremendous players by any means, but again, they still had a little bit of experience underneath their belt. So I just think those are really good, like over-under numbers, to be honest with you, if you set them for JJ McCarthy. But I think he's going to come up just short on both of those, just because, again, it's his rookie year. Those are lofty rookie numbers.
Right. It's not like he didn't play last year. He was out all year because of the injury, and that's why Darnold had the year that he had. But Darnold had at least been around, had some experience, and it was obviously O'Connell did a great job. The only thing that gives me any real pause is the fact that you do have Justin Jefferson and you do have Jordan Addison. Like, you've got two really good wide receivers and a very quarterback-friendly head coach. But I agree with what you're saying. I think that, like, for over-unders, those are good numbers. 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. And quite honestly, I would probably take the 30 touchdowns before I took the 4,000 yards. Just because, again, of who he's throwing the ball to. Like the fact that you got TJ Hawkinson as a tight end as well. So I'm selling it on both of these numbers, but like the 30 touchdowns I think is very doable, but I like the 4,000 yards, he might push it, but I don't think that he ultimately gets there. So I'm selling it for JJ McCarthy.
I think Mike in the chat also brings up a good point. It's not like he ran some spread offense in college either. He was a very much hand the ball off, control the clock, control the tempo type offense.
He hasn't shown that he's an aired out guy. Yeah.
Right. So what makes you think he's just going to be comfortable year one going to this complete air out type of offense? And, I just kind of quickly looked up Jaden Daniels' numbers. He finished with 3,600 passing yards and 25 touchdowns in the regular season. Do you think JJ McCarthy is going to be a better rookie quarterback than what Jaden Daniels was?
No, not by any means.
And he didn't reach those numbers. So again, I'm going under on both. Maybe the touchdowns, like you said.
And to your point about the offense, the other aspect of this for JJ McCarthy is because of the fact that that system that he played in college. Remember all the stats about how Michigan ran the ball in the second half because of the leads they had, and
he ain't gonna have leads in the NFL,
right? When has he been in a pressure situation where he's had to run a 2-minute offense and he's got to get the ball downfield? That's right, like quick reads and the whole thing. So this is going to be a real learning curve, real learning season for JJ McCarthy this season. So I just think that is way too lofty to expect those kind of numbers from him. And it's a great point about Jaden Daniels as well. Orlovsky, more thoughts on quarterback, says the Steelers are in an interesting sort of catch-22 now that they've signed Aaron Rodgers. Orlovsky says Rodgers won't matter in the playoffs, and the Steelers also won't be bad enough to be a top 8 pick and draft a quarterback of the future. He's essentially saying that they would have been better off tanking this season for a high draft pick next year. Does that kind of thinking make you think the NFL should go to a draft lottery?
I don't think the NFL should go to a draft lottery at the end of the day. I like the way that they do it. I'm more kind of focused on what Orlovsky was saying about the Steelers because, I couldn't agree more. I think that the Steelers have too much pride to go out there and say, you know what, we'll have a 4-12 year and we'll develop, but we'll get to draft a quarterback that we like, right? Mm-hmm. But that's the thing is the Steelers are too stubborn. They'll go 9-8, maybe, 10-7, be a wild card team, be stuck in the middle of the draft, and then get stuck with some lousy quarterbacks, middle of the road quarterbacks at the end of the day, right? And so I think if I'm the Steelers, as prideful as an organization that they are, I think you got to swallow your pride for 1 year and just say, you know what, like we need to blow up this thing on offense and just get it figured out because they're fine on defense. They'll always be fine on defense. But again, they just need to swallow that pride and say, all right, we're okay with maybe having a down year so we can actually get a quarterback of value. Like I would much rather go 4-12 this season with a chance of going 12-4 next season instead of just going 9-8, 9-8, 9-8, 8-9, 8-9, 8-9. Like,
no, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but that's also when you're playing the sport of football and it's as physical as it is in the grind of the season that it is, and what it takes to get through a 17-game season, and you've got a head coach who's been around for going on 20 years now at this point. I definitely think it is tough to swallow that pride and basically tell your fans, your organization, the guys on the team from top to bottom, we're going to ride with Mason Rudolph. Even though, look, I know there are a lot of delusional Steelers fans who think that Mason Rudolph would have been a better option than Aaron Rodgers this season. But that's what you are. You're delusional if you actually think that. Mason Rudolph has had his opportunities before. There was a reason he was gone for a year, and the reason they brought him back. It's called desperation. That was before they actually had Aaron Rodgers. So, but yeah, I mean, like Joe says, let's be honest, Rodgers will be out by game 2. I don't think that, to answer the question, I don't think that the NFL needs to go to a draft lottery because I think the sport is just structured so differently than, like the other sports that use the draft lottery. But I do agree with what you're saying. Like Pittsburgh should have just lumped it this year and, played for a quarterback of the future. But again, I think that's a tough sell for everybody when you just say, hey, we're going to ride with Mason Rudolph. Because it's not even like you had Kenny Pickett still around.
Well, either that or like give up some draft capital, like do something. They're just the Steelers are like the definition of insanity. They just do the same stuff over and over year after year, like it's pretty standard typical what you can expect out of the Steelers.
How about a little baseball? Dodgers are going to send Shohei Ohtani to the mound tonight for the first time in 21 months after his recovery from Tommy John surgery. Considering he is one of, if not the best designated hitters in the game, do you buy or sell Ohtani even pitching at all?
I buy this, but I buy this with I think the number one reason I buy this is because the days he's not pitching, he's just swinging a bat. It's not like he's got to go play the field somewhere, be an outfielder. Like he's not putting extra miles on that arm outside of pitching at the end of the day, right? Like his primary position needs to be pitcher, and the days he's not pitching, he's hitting. And even if he's pitching, he might as well just hit for himself too at the end of the day. But when you have someone this talented who can make an impact on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, I think you have to find a way to play him. And maybe that's, you reduce his pitch count, meaning he's only throwing 5 innings per game now, or, 6 innings, or maybe that's 80 pitches or, 70 pitches. I think you can definitely be more cautionary this time around and not throw him as much. But I think not throwing him at all is kind of a disservice to the team, to him, and to baseball at the end of the day, because there's so much talent for him as a pitcher.
I mean, I love the prospect of really the first, legit two-way guy since Babe Ruth, basically, over 100 years at this point. Like I love that prospect, and like watching Shohei Ohtani excel at both, because it's not like he's just he's
not average.
It's not like he's an average pitcher or like an above average pitcher and an average hitter, or vice versa. He is great at both. Like he is a potential Cy Young Award winner, and he is also potential MVP for his bat alone, let alone what he can do with both. Where where I kind of look at this is like, this is not the first time, this is the second surgery that Ohtani has had. They've had to shut him down twice. And so, like, it surprises me a little bit that the Dodgers front office is willing to do this, just because of the fact, like, everyone is so risk averse, especially in baseball. It seems like, with pitch counts and, everything else that you have, there's so much risk aversion that, like, if he injures the elbow again, you are risking potentially, what he can give you with the bat. That's what I'm looking at. And so it's a soft sell for me, because I would not want to lose his bat in the lineup.
So you're calling it a double-edged sword.
I mean, again, I love the idea of it, but because of his injury history, that's why I would, that's why I would tend to just stay away from it and be fully content with the fact, that he's got a great bat. But the other side of this is the Dodgers pitching is not that great right now for an organization that's been built on pitching.
A lot of injuries.
Yeah, it's been built on pitching for as long as it is. They need as much pitching as they can get. And, so obviously they're willing to roll the dice and see what happens.
What do you say about the Swangdong comment here? Just make him a full-time closer. Would that sway you in any direction?
I don't know. I mean, there's still, like, the way relievers are used these days, then you end up bringing him in like 3
what
to
if you
4
use him
times
every
a
other
week.
day? Like,
Yeah.
he can never go back-to-backs, basically. I just think if you're the
There's
Dodgers,
still a
you
risk.
got it. Well, and that's what I guess I was overall getting at, is there is a risk. And I think if you're the Dodgers, you can't just roll him out there and say, all right, you're just going to pitch. Like, you got to get creative with recovery, how often he's going to pitch, when he's going to pitch, how much he's going to pitch. Like, there needs to be more creativity than what there has been in the past, I think, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I want to see it, but again, it's the injury history that
also, don't you think it was so super nonchalant? Like, last night I just got a notification on my phone that was like, Ohtani's set to make his return tomorrow.
Because like literally last week they were talking about, like, it was going to be later in June or maybe even into July before this happened. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, Ohtani's going to pitch tonight.
It's like they're trying to make it not be a big deal.
Yeah.
But it obviously is, because it's Shohei Ohtani.
It's a very big deal.
You want to know my conspiracy on this,
What's
by
that?
the way? I think they let the dust settle on his little – I think the Tommy John – because, I mean, you said it 21 months ago, almost 2 years of recovery.
Yeah.
That's a long time for Tommy John.
Yep.
I think they let the dust settle from his little gambling escapade.
Oh, that's a good call.
They didn't want him, fixing games as a starting pitcher.
That's a good conspiracy theory. I don't know.
Thoughts.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
Because, again, when's the last time it took someone 21? And I get it. They're being extra cautious. But 21 months for Tommy John?
21 months, almost 2 years. So basically they were, I guess the way you looked at it, though, was 12 months, because that would be what? July, August, September that had happened.
Yeah. So basically,
like, if you waited a full year, it's not like you were going to bring him back and pitch him that late
Series.
after. Yeah, exactly. So you just wait, even though, like, you would have thought that coming into the season, maybe he would have been ready to go. Like, the fact that it had to get to this point. Boston Red Sox have traded their designated hitter, Rafael Devers, to the San Francisco Giants, essentially because he refused to play in the field after injuries to both of Boston's corner infielders this season. Do you buy or sell this move by the Red Sox?
I just think this is hilarious, to be honest with you. And there's so many layers to this thing. First of all, I buy this. I buy this on the side of Rafael Devers. I don't think there's anything wrong with him saying, I'm not playing the positions after you told me in spring training to shut it down and be a full-time DH.
After you brought in Alex Bregman, right?
And then I don't think it's bad on the Red Sox to say, all right, well, you don't want to play anywhere and we paid you a boatload of money. We got to find a way to get rid of this bad contract. And so they found the Giants. And so a couple things about this. When I was doing my little homework last night on this, did you know, first and foremost, that Buster Posey is the president of baseball operations for the Giants?
I did. Yeah.
So he made this move. This is his move.
Okay.
First and foremost, which I think is electric. You know, Buster Posey, one of the greatest catchers to play for the era that he got to play, or the timeline that he got to play in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's awesome. Number two, and I think I texted you to this, they traded Mookie Betts to make money for Rafael Devers, and then they sign him to a big deal and then just ship him off.
Yeah.
So now you've had Mookie Betts, Rafael Devers, Xander Bogaerts, Chris Sale. I'll even add Chris Sale to the list. And what have you gotten in return? What have you gotten in return for them?
As of right now, next to nothing.
A bag of baseballs is pretty much what you could say.
Yep. That's
and
right.
Then the final piece to this is I was on social media today. Guess who has had conversations with the Giants about willingness to play in the field?
Rafael Devers.
Devers told them, I will play any position you want me to play.
Wow.
How awesome is that?
I mean, obviously, it's more than just what happened this year with him. Like, I
there's
think
bad blood between him and the Red Sox.
There's bad blood between him and the management, because, look, it was like he wasn't excited about them going out and bringing in Alex Bregman because he took his position at third base. They go out and get Bregman, and they're like, look, you're going to play DH and you don't have to play anyplace else. And then, of course, Tristan Casas gets hurt. Bregman ends up getting hurt, and now they turn. And look, I understand because, I understand his side of it, that he would be upset because they said, look, this is the way it's going to be. As the Boston Red Sox, why can't you just be content that you have one of the best bats in the game playing designated hitter for you? Why do you have to
did it all last year?
Why do you have to keep bitching at him about playing in the field? You have other guys. You've brought up prospects to play those positions. Why do you have to keep going after him? This is just a lame excuse to dump more salary in a massive contract that they gave him. Not that, 3 years ago they gave it to him? Doesn't he have 7 years left still?
Yes.
So, I completely, on the Red Sox part, I completely sell it. On Devers' part, I completely buy it. The Red Sox have just proved to be morons once again. Mookie Betts out there winning World Series for the Dodgers because the Red Sox, just decide that they don't want to pay the money to have stars. They're completely content to keep cashing the checks because people are going to show up at Fenway Park, and it's the Red Sox. And by the way, this also happened on the heels, within a couple of hours of sweeping the New York Yankees. At Fenway Park.
So to piggyback on what you're saying, how can you not be content with one of the best power hitters in today's game? With how the game is played today, home runs, RBIs, extra base hits.
Everybody has a DH now. Why can't you just were you bitching at David Ortiz every time somebody got hurt? You need to go play first base now, David. It seemed like they were fully okay with Ortiz just being a DH and swatting home runs left and right.
And it's not like he's having a bad offensive year either. He leads the MLB or is top 5 in many hitting categories this season. It's just my final question for you, because you were talking about cash and checks and fans showing up to Fenway. Are they on the same level as the Ricketts? Are they worse than the Ricketts at this point?
I think that they have at least joined Ricketts territory.
In terms of the market they're in, the money they make, and how good they could potentially be.
Yes.
I think they're worse than them at this point. The Cubs have never just offloaded someone. They're not willing to re-sign
and now the Red Sox
or
have
give
done
a
it twice.
contract, but at least they don't just offload people in the middle of the season.
Because they gave him a contract they decided they didn't like, even though the guy is producing, by the way.
Right. That's why he's still one of the top hitters in the league. And like you said, Ortiz, when the DH wasn't as common or universal, they didn't care.
Yeah.
They didn't care.
It's not like it's Chris Davis, when the Orioles gave him that massive contract and then he just stopped hitting the next year. Like Devers is still hitting, even though he got, like he's living up to the contract. And there's a universal DH and the whole thing. So I don't know. It's insane to me.
Stick him in right field, like there's got to be something.
That's hilarious that the first thing that Devers did when he went to the Giants is like, I'll play wherever you want me to play.
And it came from accredited sources as well. It's not just like those BS, troll accounts. They said that Devers has had conversations and said, if you need me to play the field, I will play the field.
D-Hawk still bitter about the Chris Davis contract. Sorry, man. I had to had to give you a point of reference there. So all right, well, that's going to do it for today. Hope you enjoyed the show. Good stuff in the chat
meaty
today.
Segments today.
We did. Very meaty. A lot of meat on the bone in this one. Hit that like button before you leave, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.